Well, greetings one and all. On behalf of the Government of Canada, we welcome you to the Roundtable with Ontario Security Companies. My name is Deb Clark-Forrester. I work with the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation, and Trade. I have the privilege of working almost exclusively with private sector cybersecurity companies. In Ontario, I help existing cybersecurity companies grow their business domestically and internationally. And internationally, I help those companies who wish to expand operations into Ontario get settled here. Ontario is a robust and innovative cybersecurity market. We have at least 270 cybersecurity firms in the province. And today we are represented by 3 of those organizations. We are joined by cybersecurity experts who are here to share their collective wisdom on the state of cybersecurity in 2020, and it certainly has been an interesting year, I think you'll agree. We will also assess where it is headed, and in particular, how it stacks up in the importance against cyber insurance. We will have a panel discussion, and then we will open the floor for questions. So if you have a question, please type it in the chat and we'll get to as many questions as we can. So let me have the privilege of introducing you to our panelists. Mr. Steve Rainville. Steve has over 20 years of experience in information technology, 15 of which are specifically in IT security services. Steve brings extensive experience in cybersecurity services, including Security Operations Center, planning and optimization, solution deployments, and security analytics for Canadian and global enterprises. Over the years, he has guided and led multiple client projects with the objective of building their SOC, identifying gaps, and creating security roadmaps to improve their compliance with corporate and legal requirements. Steve, welcome, and thank you for joining us. I now have the pleasure of introducing Rocky Stefano, who is the CEO of Identita, which is a boutique security firm that specializes in access control solutions, that is committed to the development of excellence in powered cards, biometrics, access control, and mobile security. Rocky has worked biometric access control, privacy, and information security management for the past 25 years, in roles that cover everything from technology to management and consultancy. And last, but certainly not least, is Jonathan Gagné. Jonathan is the founder and CEO of Faith. He is a privacy activist and technology protege. Jonathan has dedicated his life to building world-class, cloud-enabled, and on-prem connected cybersecurity systems to secure and protect applications, platforms, and identities for not only enterprise clients, but consumers around the world. Jonathan was the CIO of a global e-commerce company for almost a decade, very early in his career. As a result, he brings a business and technology perspective to cybersecurity. Jonathan's mission in founding Faith is to provide a continuous and frictionless layer of security that recognizes that users are human while respecting the needs of corporations and governments to maintain a hard wall against hackers and other bad actors. The identity as a service that Faith provides is the product of his practical understanding of the legacy information security systems in place today, along with his vision for an additional behavioral-based biometric layer that leapfrogs existing MFA solutions. Let us begin with the questions. The first question: cybersecurity versus cyber insurance is becoming an active debate in boardrooms all around the world. The financial markets see both as growth industries. This is a two-part question. The first part of this question is, as experts in cybersecurity, How would you counsel a CEO or a CFO trying to decide where to spend their limited budget? And the second part of this question is, are there any guiding principles you recommend they consider? Jonathan, I will ask you to begin, and thank you.
Thank you very much for asking, because this is a really good question, and a lot of people are wondering, and I heard that question a lot. So with the rising number of data breach in 2020, we realized that there is a common challenge that every victim has. Obviously, money and investment can be refunded, but how do you do? Or our cyber insurance company could refund trust. Um, and there's a question. The other question is, what dollar value do you place on the trust of your customer, investor, and stock market? As an example, the Desjardins Groups last year's theft of a personal data of its 4.2 million member ultimately cost of the cooperative $108 million. Its costs are mainly related to the identity theft insurance that from Equifax for the 5 years and things. So the most impressive fact is that only 13% are of the affected customers signing up for the services. So in fact, we cannot blame them, because only 10 months ago, Equifax had its own data breach as well, affecting 147 million consumers. So the restitution, I think this was worth about $6 billion, and only 2% of the affected customers took advantage of this offered restitution. And millions are opting for instead to join a class action lawsuit. So here is if you are a financial service company offering a credit monitoring service as a protection to your hacked customer, what do you do when the credit monitoring system turn out to be unhackable too? So for that reason, we strongly suggest to be proactive with the cybersecurity system. And if there's money left, well, this is when the cyber insurance kick in.
Perfect. Jonathan, thank you for that really insightful answer.
My pleasure.
Rocky, let's take it for your comments.
I think when you look at cybersecurity versus that there, I think what you want to look at that, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And a couple of years back, AT&T, I believe, did a survey of corporations in the US primarily, and a third of them thought that they could replace the majority of their cybersecurity strategy with, simply by having a very good cyber insurance policy. And if you really want to look at that, take the case of Sony back in 2011, when their online gaming platform was hacked. They were down for, I think, 23 days. 23 days and 77 million pretty angry gamers later ended up suing Sony in a class action lawsuit. And Sony said, well, our insurance should cover it. And in fact, they didn't have cybersecurity, they didn't have cyber insurance specifically. And so what the judge ended up ruling was that Sony was at fault and had to pay everything out of pocket because they didn't have the proper coverage to their policies. So simply having your typical policy in place is not always an adequate coverage for what you're doing. What I would tell a CEO or a CFO is that when they're choosing a policy, they want to look at things like does the insurance company offer one or more types of cyber insurance policies, or is the coverage simply an extension to their existing policy? What are the deductibles? What are do they have first party and third party coverage, which is very different. So for instance, Europe is far more comfortable with uses third party coverage more often, whereas in the US and Canada, first party coverage is more typical. And the differences between the two is first party is basically the damage that occurs to my company during a cyber attack, and third party obviously is what happens to either my customers or other people that were unwittingly involved in that cyber attack and were damaged by it. As well, does the policy cover social engineering attacks and spear phishing or any persistent threats? So not all policies are the same. And as always, I would always, at one of my older companies, we always said to always have security in layers, always try to layer as many different types of security products as possible so as to give a possible hacker or even somebody on the inside, a disgruntled employee, just too many things to overcome when they have to try and hack the company. So that's what I would look at.
Rocky, thank you so much for illustrating your answer with a really great example, and your insight about the differences and what clients need to look for in cyber insurance was really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Steve, last but certainly far from least, we welcome your thoughts.
Thank you. I like the two previous comments from Jonathan and Rocky, because to your point, it really shows the challenges, right, between cybersecurity and cyber insurance, and where do you go. Enterprises, and executives need to remember that the insurance policy, cyber insurance, is evolving as cybersecurity programs and the threats are evolving as well. And so early days, coverage was probably more of, well, just a basic checklist, and then you can get your policy. And, as Rocky was mentioning, if you negotiated and you made sure that you have the right coverage, you're safe, so to speak, right? You can be rest assured that you're insured for certain situations. The thing is now, you need to put in place a cybersecurity program. So I'd go back with what Jonathan was mentioning. You need to do the right actions. You need to put a program in place. There are advanced persistent threats. There are different attacks. And to Rocky's point, if you're worried about your financial records, if you're worried about certain types of information, and those could be leaked through phishing attacks or different mechanisms, you have to do the work. You need the technology, you need the people, and you need the processes in place to be able to show that you have due care, that you've done the basics, right? And then that you can say, well, these attackers, the hackers, have gone over and above just a random attack and gotten through. I had no coverage, I had no monitoring, my environment was full of vulnerabilities. It was just very easy to get through. I would also caution a little bit with when we say, because we often talk about in cybersecurity about defense in depth and layered security, and we like to promote a lot of technology. I think the flip side of that is, there's a ton of statistics on larger organizations that have hundreds of tools. Are they well managed? Are they maintained? Are they actually providing value to those organizations? That's far from certain. So yes, the technology is important, but how is it being deployed? How is it being maintained? And are we looking at, the potential attacks, the potential incidents, investigating them and performing the response? So it's a whole, obviously it's a security program. There's a lot of work to be done behind this. And then for the residual risk and what you need on top of that is appropriate cyber insurance. So it's calculating, what's valuable, what are your valuable assets, whether it's records, it's IP, depending on your business. I've heard earlier this week, someone was mentioning, a study from Forrester and evaluating the cost. Records, personal information can be valued anywhere from $100 to $400. I'd be curious to see, Jonathan, with the statistics from Desjardins, how does that figure out that number there? But if you have thousands upon thousands of records, then you're into the millions of dollars. Kind of makes sense then to spend a few $100,000 or whatnot in cybersecurity and to get the right level of technology, people, process, and technology in place. Mm-hmm. So it's finding that right balance and then, covering your basics.
Steve, thanks so much for reminding the audience about the importance of the basics. And I really appreciate how you touched on technology, people, and process, because that's so essential. We are going to move on, and we're going to take a look at getting your thoughts on another question. Each of you represents a different type of cybersecurity. We have a couple of different questions. First of all, can you tell us about your specific cybersecurity solution and how it stops hackers? Secondly, cybersecurity is often described as working best with multiple layers. Can you also speak to how your solution integrates with other common cybersecurity services and tools? And I think we will start with Rocky. Thank you, Rocky.
Okay. Thanks, Tip. Our products at Identita cover a wide range of security protocols. And what I mean by that is we've been really careful to look at budgetary constraints with our customers across the globe. So when we're selling something in Africa versus selling something in the US, we have to be mindful of the budgets of those prospective customers that we're dealing with, because one customer can handle buying a token for $100, and the customer in Africa, unfortunately, can't afford $10. So I think we've done an excellent job at making our product base as diverse as possible, so that, for instance, we'll have and if we can show them briefly, we can have, something as easy as a PIN-based smart card to something as complex as a biometric smart card. So we can go from something that costs for as little as $6 a unit all the way up to something that costs $100 a unit. So again, like the other speakers were touching on, it's all about the level of threat that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, the budget that our customers have, and and the consistency with which their customers, see those threats on a daily basis. So somebody who is in the United States perhaps who shops online with Amazon constantly might need online analytics and keyboard tools that are much more relevant to them than to, say, somebody using physical and logical security in Africa to get in and out of a school in order to take exams for college, right? So to each their own, so to speak. Our products touch not only on physical security, but on logical security. We've done a good job of meshing them together with our back-end product line. And it integrates very well with either standard premise-based customer premises, or even cloud-based solutions like Azure or Amazon Web Services.
Thank you, Rocky. I really appreciate how you have a solution for every client based on their budget. Thank you. Steve, I'm going to ask you for your thoughts and your comments and your ideas.
So for us at CYDEF, we're looking at endpoints, and the endpoints specifically that we're working with today are the Windows variety. So any flavor of Windows, whether it's on a laptop, desktop, a server, physical or virtual, it doesn't really matter. We are moving as well into the Mac operating system and Unix for our customers. And the approach we've taken is to be able, to Rocky's point as well, adapt to the different customers. And our founders, what they were noticing is that there's two major problems. A lot of the technology, and since we're in the endpoint and it's detection and response and recovery, a lot of them are geared towards larger enterprises. It's a huge sticker price. It's a lot of maintenance. It takes a lot of expertise. So how do we build better, simpler, more cost-effective technology that can get to the same objectives? And really, when we're talking about the endpoints, is how can I confirm as quickly as possible that a compromise is taking place on an endpoint, right? How do I do that detection quickly? So again, the team has built monitoring capabilities that is passive. So for users, there's no interaction, there's no pop-ups, there's nothing to bother them or distract them or saying, should I be saying yes or no to this, or should I respond to my security tool? We understand they don't necessarily have the expertise, so we offer this as a service. We do the monitoring for them, and as we confirm that there's an incident, and this can be anything from what we would consider a policy violation, as someone installed their own private VPN technology to get around some of the corporate security controls, or they downloading torrents or all kinds of content again in a corporate environment, not necessarily desirable, or is it something more malicious, more dangerous to corporate assets, advanced malware, APTs such as ransomware, etc. And we'll notify the customers. We can also get into engagements where we can do automatic, containment and remediation for them. We're keeping it simple, and the licensing starts at 1 and goes as large as what customers really need. And so that's our objective: is very little maintenance. They get actionable alerts. They know exactly what's going on. We give them all the details. And we're trying to, engineer proper security instead of saying, well, it's dark arts, it's black magic, you need a lot of expertise. We're taking a different approach and making it very, it's A, B, and C, and D, and here's the results. And as you continue to do that, you continue to improve your security posture. That's really what we're working on. And it's at the endpoint level. So, with Rocky and Jonathan and these type of solutions, it's a nice complement because we're looking at the assets people use, whereas they are looking at, who is using those assets and how are they, what are they accessing? So again, defense in depth.
Thanks, Steve. Adaptation being key. Thank you so much. Jonathan, we're going to pass it over to you to take us home with this question.
Thank you very much. With my past experience with the flow mitigation system, I realized that pretty much everyone was using browser fingerprinting, device fingerprinting. And now, due to the new e-privacy regulation, it's not a solution anymore, and there's not that much alternative out there. And due to the fact that over 34% of the credentials are now corrupted, there's a lot of place where we can just find a disaster that could be done by a hacker who's touching our credential. So there's as well a huge raising demand of the remote working due to the COVID-19, and that's put the corporation at risk because we don't know if this is actually the real employee who's using the credential, or the jealous husband, or maybe a frustrated teenager who just touched the password over a post-it over the screen. So that's why I saw too much problem right now, and too much solution was out there, but no one was using them. So that's why we create a behavior biometrics security base. So we are using machine learning and AI in order to recognize if this is actually the real identity by the way that is interact with his mouse and his keyboard. So from there, even if we have the real user and real password, and I try to access to your information, I will never be able to do it because I don't have the same way to interact with either my touchscreen, again, my keyboard, or my mouse. And by using just those information that is meaningless, actually, we are not blocked by the browser tracker blocker, which is actually every browser have due to the privacy regulation. So like this, we can keep collecting the data in privacy, and we are not touching any information such as the computer or the device, any kind of device information, or the phone number, or the identity itself. So we do believe every cybersecurity is important, such as I think is Steve just said actually. Every cybersecurity is extremely important, and we don't want to replace any cybersecurity. We just want to add an extra layer of security over any other cybersecurity, such as IIM, PIM, or any other one. So that's why we just implement a simple line of code for the JavaScript library and a simple SDK, such as any kind of APL system. And from there, you just add the behavior biometrics cybersecurity to your security system.
Jonathan, thank you. A really terrific solution that you've put in play.
Thank you.
For our guests who have joined us, if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to type them into chat, and we will do our best to answer as many as we can. However, I think we've come to our last question. And I'm going to ask everyone just to respond, maybe in 30 seconds with an answer. Many countries are now experiencing a second wave of COVID-19 that appears to be much more serious than the first wave. And employees are continuing to work from home much longer than initially expected. Could you tell us one or two things that you see changing in cybersecurity in the year ahead to accommodate the changes that COVID-19 has forced on all of us? And I'm going to start with Steve, and thank you.
Thank you. With the work from home, I think it's transformations. Some of the items in cyber obviously is going to be more virtualization, more acceleration to the cloud. It's already been happening, but I guess it's obviously everyone that could turn around, that had the expertise, just accelerated what they already could do. The others that were kind of waiting patiently and trying to figure out, well, should we do the move and do I really have to? I think everyone is kind of understanding this is the way we are going to operate for the foreseeable future. And the longer it stays this way, the harder it's going to be to go back. So I think for every team in cyber right now, it's whatever it looks like today, it's try to improve on what you already have, right? So some of them, a lot of the customers we work with are behind the curve, try to figure out, improve every day and just keep on doing that. It seems like the basics, again, repeating my earlier comment, but it's really for that. The transformation is going to be, how do I simplify this and work with the right partners from the cloud, from identity, services, whatnot. That I think is where it's going to be helpful.
Excellent, Steve. Thank you. Jonathan, your thoughts, please.
I think right now the biggest challenge is the visibility. No matter what cybersecurity we put over the remote worker, there's no way to know if actually this is the employee who's playing with the corporate data. So we have to find a way to raise the visibility and be sure that this is the actual employee who's touching the corporate data, or even worse, can destroy the corporate data. So at this point, I think this is the biggest challenge, and we can see a lot of incidents is happening right now due to that, I would say, that raising demand.
Thank you. And Rocky, we're going to ask for your thoughts on this last question.
Well, regarding COVID, I hate to say this, but it's been really good for our business. Our specialty with Smartcards is with contactless smart cards. That is payments and authorizations that can be done remotely by both biometrically and two-factor. And our business just in the last 6 months has exploded with people that are requesting those types of products from us. Specifically, both even just today, Amazon announced that they're going to have a palm-like contactless device for payment in all of their stores. MasterCard at the end of the year, for those people who don't know, but MasterCard's been going through trials for the last 2 years, but at the end of this year, we'll be announcing formal rollouts of biometric credit card and debit cards to banks worldwide. So you'll never have to touch a payment terminal again in order to pay something. And if you're using our specific payment cards, you can make your payments from home as if you had a payment terminal right beside you. The other thing that I see becoming really important as well in a not only a COVID but a post-COVID world is smart edge AI-based detection devices that can do things like occupancy counts, temperature measurements, mask detection. All of these I think are going to be really in a lot of demand as things move forward.
Thanks, Rocky. We actually have a question. So I'm going to ask Jonathan, how much do you think innovation helped improve cybersecurity?
Good question. And things, innovations going in the both way. Hackers are actually using innovation in order to hack corporations. So we still need to keep going forward and always be a step forward them in order to make it happen. And the way to make it happen is innovation. So this is always important. Right now, we hear that the most likelihood danger that corporation in Canada can face on is not even the second wave of COVID-19, but is a cyber attack. So innovation is actually one of our biggest, I would say, defense for us.
Thank you. And Steve, could I get your thoughts? This is a really great question that we've been asked by Antoine. Are we safer now than we were 10 years ago?
I'd like to say yes.
Okay.
You know, I think to Jonathan's point, with all of the innovation, we're trying to stay in lockstep, always a few steps behind, but we're trying to stay as close as possible. However, with all of the innovation, all of our services, you know, everything we use and the organizations behind them, and critical infrastructure and whatnot, everything is now connected. So the impacts also are much higher than when, you know, everything was analog or at least disconnected. So if you wanted to perform an attack, it was a lot more work. So not quite sure if we've actually, with all of this innovation in IoT and connectivity and 5G that's coming up, that we're actually improving, because unfortunately, as we started this conversation, you know, cyber often comes at a second stage and it's a bolt-on, and a lot of organizations still think, well, yeah, I'll get insurance for it and I'll accept the risk, and it's kind of implied. But as everything is connected and it gets more and more critical, I'm not sure I can say we're safer.
Well, Steve, thank you. Now it's my turn to say thank you to our audience for their time. And I hope this discussion was informative, but I have been reminded, before we wrap up, please note that Faith is running a contest at the Ontario, Canada Pavilion. So I am told the first person to break into a system protected by the Faith Identity as a Service will win an iPad.
I want it.
I want it too. You have unlimited chances to try. And so far, no one has been able to crack it. So get over there and give it a go. The contest is sponsored by Technicost, the world's leading provider of credit and lending software.
Excellent.
On that note, I bid you adieu. I thank everyone for their time and attention, and have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.